Line is hot.
Hit!
What's up, YouTube? Today we're taking a look at the DR-200/K2. This is a semi-automatic rifle that was imported in the 80s and early 90s. In this case, this one started life as a DR-200 and was converted to a pistol grip and a fixed stock with the appropriate amount of US parts. You might see some of these on the gun shelf and you're probably asking yourself, should I get one? Well, that's what this video is going to answer. This isn't going to be a history lesson. This is actually going to be taking this machine, getting it dirty, conducting some accuracy testing, and doing a full-on thorough review on the DR-200/K2. So let's see if we can answer those questions. Let's see if this rifle is worth it. Let's get started. The fit and finish of the rifle. If I had to describe the Daewoo in one word, that word's going to be robust. The Woo is overbuilt and robust. The receiver set looks to be made to survive decades of combat. It's got a sleek Colt gray finish and overall it looks bomb-proof. The barrel is a phosphated, lightweight profile barrel and features a forged front sight base. If you notice, there's a front sling swivel integrated into the barrel and it rotates freely from side to side. This is a great feature and it wouldn't be out of place on an M16A2. The rifle has adjustable gas settings and can be locked out for single shot use. The fire control group, bolt carrier, piston, and associated internals all look well made and cycle very cleanly by the round charging handle. The rifle is used, so I'm unsure of the round count, but the gun charges as smooth as a well broken in AR-15. The handguards are a clamshell plastic with a built-in heat shield. They feel somewhat flimsy in comparison to quality plastic M16 handguards. The bolt and piston assembly are familiar, having hints of an AK-47 and being very much stoner influenced at the same time. The interface between the bolt and carrier is simply a cutout where the piston assembly sits. The bolt carrier features a wide bearing surface at the rear of the receiver to reduce the effects of carrier tilt. The bolt itself resembles that of an AR-15 as it features the same amount of lugs with one cut away to carve a path for the fixed ejector. The bolt assembly shares a cotter pin and cam pin with the M16 series of rifles, but is otherwise wholly unique and not compatible. The K2 feels very familiar to anyone who's been behind an AK and or an AR-15. The controls from the AR are all present and accounted for, save for the charging handle position. The rear sight is a standard peep with plenty of sight radius. The rear adjustments are also simple. A wheel below the peep is rotated for elevation adjustment, and standard M16A1 rear windage wheel is present. The sights are adjustable for typical battlefield distances. Represented are 25-350, then 400, 500, and 600 meter settings. Accuracy testing the Daewoo involved me pitting it against an M16A4. Neither of the rifles I tested were free-floated, so I felt this was a very fair comparison, especially considering they're both iron-sighted rifles with mil-spec triggers. The ammunition I chose to use for this test was a handload of 52 grain ELD match over 24 grains of Varget. The load I'm using has produced .78 MOA 10 round groups out of a straightjacket barrel system, so this is a fantastic load, a good load to reduce variables as far as your projectile. I couldn't go much heavier because the Daewoo was the limiting factor. It is 1 in 12 twist. The AR-15, being 1 in 7 twist, can swallow the lighter bullets fairly well, and I think it's going to be as fair as a comparison as we can get between these two rifles. In the accuracy department, the AR-15 really showed its strengths. Even without a free float rail, the simple gas system kept a tighter group ultimately than the Daewoo. In addition to that, I noticed that the front sight post, being smaller, being a square front sight post and A2 post, was sharper and crisper to use, much better than the Daewoo's. Even though the Daewoo does taper out at the end, it's still a fatter front sight post and there's a lot more going on, especially with the globe surrounding the front sight post. Very tough, very protected, yes, but it is not an advantage for iron sight precision shooting. The AR-15 walked all over the Daewoo in this scenario. So taking a look at the group here, we have the DR-200, the K2, with a 3.39 MOA 10 round group, and the PSA 20-inch gun, a 2.69 MOA group. Now I think ultimately the DR-200 series, the K2, is going to be less mechanically accurate than an AR simply because of the reciprocating mass above the barrel, i.e. the gas system. But that's life. However, if you put an optic on both of these guns, the groups would tighten up, so certainly if the Daewoo was able to pull 2.5 to 3 MOA, that is more than enough accuracy you need to get out to reach out and touch something. With a practical shooting scenario, I decided to load up 30-round mags and start at 100 yards and bang some steel. The Daewoo handles very well. It feels very familiar. Obviously the AR style trigger, the hand guards feel a little bit like a Magpul Mo, but it points and shoots very well. The weight on this thing is 7.8 pounds. That is lighter than the 20-inch rifle I was shooting, the AR15, which weighs in at 8.4 pounds with the Magpul furniture. So it's light, it's familiar. Getting hits on these targets is not difficult. What good is a practical rifle review without getting a little bit of mud and dirt in the action? I decided that the edge of my pond would pose a realistic threat to my rifle. Throwing it into this muddy, gunky water is sure to slow the action down quite a bit. This is South Texas clay, and it does not play nice with guns. It sticks to everything, and when disturbed, the turbidity in the water becomes ridiculous. You cannot see your hand a few inches down into the water once that gunk is stirred up. As you can see, it looks pretty much like a thick, dark brown soup. Once it gets in the action, once this fluid gets in the action, it coats everything. The gas piston, the bolt carrier, etc. gets coated in a fine grit sandpaper. It's hell on guns. And the Daewoo was no exception. It felt nasty on the inside, as nasty as it looked on the outside. First round was an immediate failure to eject. Right now the gas system is on S, so it's not pumping a whole lot of gas into the gun to rack that bolt back with much violence. I'm going to adjust it here in a minute, but I want to try again. First thing to note is that the side charging handle makes this thing a little easier to clear than an AR. Going to the rear charging handle on an AR is a little less ergonomic than having, at least for right-handed people, than having a charging handle on the right side of the gun. So that said, I didn't think it was going to function very well on S, so I moved to the medium gas setting. Let's see if it made any difference whatsoever. Success. We got off 6 rounds, just 6 rounds, on semi-automatic by simply moving the gas system to medium. But then we became a bolt-action rifle. At this point, it was simply shoot, rack, shoot, rack. So I think it's a realistic scenario to clean this gun with what you have available. If you were using a rifle to defend your life, you don't have time to field strip a gun when it gets muddy. So what do? Naturally I thought, well, what would anyone have on them if they were a prepared individual? A canteen full of water. So I took it back to home base, and without disassembling, I simply doused the innards with as much water as the canteen would allow. I cycled the action a few times, and I also washed a little bit more of the mud off the various areas, including the other side of the rifle, which doesn't really matter from a mechanical standpoint, but it has to be pretty. Come on, it's a Daewoo, it's rare. So I used just a canteen to get this gun to a functional status, or at least to test and see if I got to a functional status. Gas system is still on medium. Now take note, immediately the ejection is weak. A little stronger. Whoa, where'd that go? Boom, ejection back to full power. It was throwing brass to the right just as far as an AK does, and that's what is natural for the Daewoo. It throws brass very far to the side. So success. We got the gun running without having to disassemble it by just dousing it in water. How reliable is that compared to an AR-15? I can't quite say. But take that for what it's worth. I got the gun running with just my canteen. And the final point to discuss really is this a good rifleman's weapon? Maybe. It has adjustable rear elevation, so that's great. You can bang out targets from 0 to 600 yards in theory, but I think you're going to run into a lot of trouble at the 400 yard mark and beyond. While you can adjust the elevation, you're limited to 55 grain ammunition. That's going to be quite a limiting factor, especially in breezy conditions. Despite that, the fact that you have a long sight radius, an excellent rear peep, and that you can use aftermarket AR-15 triggers give this gun a lot of potential. I think anyone or anything inside of 400 yards that's on the other side of this pipe is going to be in the danger zone. So yes, it makes a decent rifleman's weapon, though the AR-15 is ultimately quite superior. The K2/DR-200 is a fine fighting rifle. It's reliable, has good ergonomics save for the awkward safety, and it's built to last. It's a pleasure to shoot, and the testing I did was confidence inspiring. Let's score it. Accuracy, I'm going to give it a C. Technically, this rifle will get a D for accuracy, but with an optic, I'm sure it could come down to a 2.5 to 3 MOA gun. I will give it the benefit of the doubt. The ability to add an optic rail redeems the Woo, as adding optics will enhance shooter precision. Reliability, the rifle gets a B. The rifle functioned without issue when clean, but struggled through the mud. Since I didn't have to field strip the rifle to get it running, it gets a solid B. Ergonomics, B. Lighter than a 20-inch AR-15, it points well, and it has all the familiar controls of an AR. It gets a B simply because the safety is awkward to use. Again, it rotates 180 degrees, and the magazine release is still a bit out of reach. It's further out than an AR-15, so it's going to get a solid B here. Overall rifle score is a B-. The scoring criteria will be present down below, so expand the additional information on the video. The Daewoo borrows from many good designs of the time, and it's a worthy addition to your fighting rifle collection if you can swing for 2 of them to ensure you have some spare parts available. Please be sure to like and subscribe. If you like what we are doing, please consider visiting our sponsors Brownells and or Palmetto State Armory. We will get a small portion of the sale, and we will use it to pay our authors, webmasters, and to purchase gear to review independently. Independent rifle reviews are rare and hard to find. We hope to change that at thenewrifleman.com. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.